Coast Business Radio is the home for business from the Gold Coast to Byron Bay and beyond. Whether you're an entrepreneur, small business owner, or just managing your family's assets, the Coast Business Radio podcast can help. Find the resources you need to manage your money, start your latest venture, grow your business, and be able to compete in a global market.
When you're running a business, there's no time for downtime, which is why we've introduced Business NBN. It's the business-grade NBN solution internet providers can customise for businesses, big or small. It gives you a choice of providers, great value and the potential to connect to technology to optimise your business. And with the option of premium service support available to your provider, it's built for better business. Ask your provider for Business NBN today.
This is the Coast Business Radio podcast.
Anne Nalder, founder and CEO, welcome.
Thank you, and how are you?
Very exciting, isn't it?
I think it's terribly exciting. And
you have a great voice for radio. And I was going to say the perfect face for radio. I have a perfect face for radio.
Oh, yeah, I love
that.
They
can't see it.
Exactly.
Okay. SBAA, Small Business Association of Australia. What made you start this?
Well, for years there has been an awareness of large numbers of small businesses failing, and I wanted to do something about this because I'd been in business myself. You can't stop failures, but you can reduce failures. So small businesses fail for a variety of reasons. However, economic conditions as a result of government policy also play a major role. Now, bear in mind that we have 3 tiers of government to comply with, and that is local, state and Commonwealth. And research show that we have a $186 billion red tape industry.
Oh my goodness.
I know, it's terrible. With red tape favouring big business. We've got over-the-top compliance and regulation, an expensive country to do business in, and no level playing field. So the answer was threefold. We have to have better policies for small business owners, and small business owners needed to be better educated and informed. And there was also no long-term plan for small businesses. There has never been a plan in this country regarding small business.
So, could you tell me when you started SBAA?
Yes, after the plan was formulated, because it's all very well to have an idea, but once
over a glass of red.
Yeah, probably 1 or 2.
The third one's a
The third one is
that
one.
Kicks in.
No, it's one of these things that at 2 a.m. in the morning, the idea enters your mind. So you sit up and you work it out how it's going to be done. So once that was worked out, the Small Business Association of Australia was formed on the 10th of April, 2010.
My goodness, that's a long time ago. Now, what about your achievements? What have you done, though, in those 9 years?
Oh, but before we go to about the when we started, that actually means that we are actually a young organisation.
Really?
Yeah, because we're only 9 years old.
Yeah, but that's a fair...
No. A lot of the organisations in Australia, business ones, are over 100 years old.
But you bring to the table, as we're sitting at this table, you bring to the table a lot of experience.
I do, yes.
Okay, so therefore, even though the org's been going just for a brief time, 9 years, which is not so brief, you also have that experience.
Yes.
But I do understand, though, there is the other organisations that have been around for 100 years, but they say you may have been doing that for 100 years, doesn't mean you have 100 years experience.
Exactly, so you're right.
So tell us about the achievements then.
Okay, I'm proud of what we have done. That's my staff, committees and those who work closely with us have achieved because it benefits small business owners in various ways. Today we are acknowledged as a leader in our field. We are constantly consulted by government departments and other relevant bodies seeking our views, which is always in the interest of small business. One of the greatest achievements is the SBAA think tank, which we formed. It is the very first in Australia specialising in small business, and as a result we drafted the Small Business Charter of Australia that contains 10 pillars which are crucial to the survival, growth and prosperity of small business owners. After all, small business owner is entitled to make some money at the end of the day. The Charter is for policymakers, and one of the elements is the Think Small Business First principle when formulating policy. In other words, they must ask the question, how will this policy affect a small business? Now, over the years, it's been one cap fits all, and we know that that doesn't work.
Okay, do governments take responsibility?
I don't know so much as they take responsibility, but they do have responsibility. Right. And as I mentioned, yes, they do, and that is to create an environment in which a small business can operate in. Currently, small business is compliant under local, state and Commonwealth governments, including regulators. Whilst I agree we need laws relating to small businesses, currently they are excessive and in many cases they're draconian. Now, due to governments continuing to impose more and more regulation, it is stifling small business owners, and it is leaving them open to heavy fines and penalties for failing to comply. Now, governments and regulators fail to understand that a one or two person small business already spends much of their time complying, and to know every compliance in everything related to small business is an impossibility. Like years ago, you might have had a few laws. Today, it's over the top. And woe behold the small business owner if they get it wrong. And one of the things that I think that we do very badly in this country is we still have a convict mentality in this country, and that is to keep punishing everyone.
It was my great-great-great-great-great-grandparents. They nicked a few spuds.
Well, there you are. So they know what it's all about.
So they sent us from this doom and gloom in England over to the beaches around Bondi.
Yes. Well, that wasn't a bad penalty, was it?
But there was no cafes then.
No, oh, what a shame.
No, but a lot of barbecues.
Okay, yeah, that's great. But no, seriously, today we rather than help the small business owners, we hit them with heavy fines and we just make it impossible. Now, although the intentions of governments might be good, I feel that there is a real lack of understanding of what a small business is and what is needed to allow them to flourish, to grow, to compete in a global economy and to make some money. Remember that each new compliance means an additional cost to the small business owner. No matter how small, the costs all add up.
So, Anne, do small business owners have a responsibility?
Yes, they do, Mike. Years ago, you could go into a small business with very little capital and you could make good. Today, those days are gone, and a more sophisticated approach is required. That includes a person preparing a business plan, and it can be a short one. They need capital behind them, and they need to do their due diligence. For example, we have the ATO single touch payroll come in. This means that all businesses, large and small, now need to be compliant. For example, larger businesses had to comply from the 1st of July last year, and all businesses with under 19 employees comply from the 1st of July this year. But they have been given until the 30th of September by the ATO. There are also, for example, fair work rules. And I want to give you an example of a recent case where a small business owner who is a retailer was fined $5,000 for having the wrong wording on his refund policy. The person said to me that he had been trading for 20 years and he had never had any issues. And I told him that times have changed. He had the option to appeal through the court. However, once he went down that pathway, it would be treated as a criminal case, and if he lost, which he would have done, he would have been convicted as a criminal, plus he would have incurred further cost. Also, I come across many small business owners who do not have any risk management policies. This is very dangerous and can eventually lead to litigation resulting in a criminal conviction. So the message is that small business owners need to be aware of what compliance obligations they have relevant to their industry and that they cannot make up their own rules. They need to constantly upskill and educate themselves in the best and latest business practices. If they employ staff, they need to ensure they include training their staff no matter how small the business is. Finally, small business owners need to look after their health. If their health, that is physical and mental, is not up to scratch, that can affect decisions that the small business owner makes, including staff morale.
I normally find a scotch sometimes helps the mental part, but really you need to be up to speed.
You do.
If you're sick, then then the people working under you who rely on you for their bread and butter, they're in deep trouble.
Exactly. We talk about staff and others having mental issues, and it is an $8 billion industry in Australia. That's what it's costing.
$8 billion?
$8 billion.
Whoa.
That's what it's costing industry. So it's not a thing you can take lightly, and you have to ensure that. So we talk about staff, etc., but very few people realise that your bosses, you're the owner of the business, can be affected as well.
Things have really changed, haven't they, the last 20, 10, 5 years?
Well, you know, if you think about all the things, like business is an exciting thing, to be your own business owner, to make your own decisions and things like that. But all the rules and regulations, we are really over the top. And it's stressing people out as well, you know, because sometimes you could be breaking the law without even knowing about it. So all these things do add up. It's a totally different environment today as it was, as you say, 10, 20 years ago.
You're listening to Coast Business Radio with Mike Ryan.
The SBAA plays a major role in advocacy. What are the challenges for, say, small business in Australia?
There are many. One of the main issues is cash flow issues, and we'll talk about that in our next podcast, how to sort out the cash flow situation. There are also something that people may not be aware of, but some of our big multinational companies take up to 180 days. That's nearly half a year to pay their small business owner suppliers.
That's incredible.
That is incredible, and it's a true story. So what that means is that a small business owner is actually carrying the cost because they have probably provided a service or goods or whatever. They've had to pay their staff, so that eats into their cash flow. The banks, of course, are happy about that because that means a small business owner might take out some extra money to pay for their costs. So it's not a good thing. So lengthy payments are a real issue into this country, and that does create a cash flow problem. There are also unfair contracts being created, but there is a movement going on at the moment where there is some redress, and again we'll talk about that. There's too many compliance issues, particularly with heavy penalties, and there is a high cost in operating a small business. Generally speaking, there is no level playing field. And as I said also, there's the $8 billion industry of mental health.
Just absolutely mind-boggling, isn't it, really?
It is.
You think I recall when they said computers are going to make your life easier.
Well, I don't think so much as computers. I think it's just governments, because it's not just one government we have to deal with.
They were going to make it even, do away with the red tape. You hear every election, too much red tape.
Yeah.
And what are we seeing here?
Excessive red tape. But the problem with red tape is once you introduce it, it's very hard sometimes to get rid of it because you might get rid of one section, it may affect another section. So it's a bit like taxes. When you bring them in, it's like a whole range of things. It's you find very rarely do they get taken out. As to reducing red tape, I have yet to see the evidence on that.
It's sort of plagues Western governments everywhere. And you can understand why. But it's like, well, we have another department, so you have to have another department to look after that department, and one to look after those departments, but who looks after, we'll have another department. Yeah,
what we do, there are countries around the world that are doing great things to do with small business, one-stop shops. They are making it easier, they give a lot of concessions, and they're really helping their MSMEs. The country that always comes out on top lately is New Zealand. And with the APEC report of which we were consulted with, Malaysia and New Zealand come out on top. Now, Australia is falling behind, and we should be in the top, say, 15, and we're not, at least, and we keep dropping down further. It's not a good look. We're too slow. We're too slow to make doing business easier. And in business, you can't afford all of that all the time, especially a small business owner. We need things to be done now, as quickly as possible, but it's not happening.
it would make the CPA or the accountant or the bookkeeper, I suppose, feeling a little more secure because their services are even in more demand, such greater demand.
That they are.
And maybe that's the way to go. Focus on your business. Give it to someone else who knows what they're doing instead of spending days and hours and time.
I think it is a good idea to outsource things at times because you can't do. You've got to weigh up what does it cost of your time, but you've got to also remember that it depends on the budget of the small business owners. Now, an alarming figure that was said recently, and this is from the ATO, that 56% of small businesses, and I'm not sure, they didn't mention whether they're micro, small or mediums, but it said 56% of small businesses, they were actually deemed as being on the poverty line because by the time they paid their staff and paid their creditors, there's very little money left over to even pay themselves or to pay or to create other things. So there is a cash flow situation there. You've got to remember too that we are a small economy in a very large country. We're slightly smaller than the United States of America with 25 million people. The United States of America has 330 odd million people.
Yep.
So totally different ball game. And so this is where we have to grow and do other things.
In Australia, more hours are lost in the workplace through mental health problems than for any other reason. We have to change that. Lift the Lid on Mental Illness is an Australian initiative to prevent mental illness through research. And through Lift the Lid's Adopt a Scientist campaign, you'll be able to choose an area of mental illness research that you wish to support. It's a Rotary project. 100% of every donation will be used for research. Go online, Lift the Lid, Australian Rotary Health.
You're listening to the Coast Business Radio podcast.
We offer things like mentoring. This is proper mentoring. A lot of people call themselves mentors, but there is very little guidance that tells me, for example, of the skills and the ability of a person to mentor or to even coach a small business owner. We can do consultancy work that includes evaluating a failing business or a business that needs assistance and putting a plan in place. We do international trade missions for small business owners. Now, this one's an exciting one because it allows people in the services sector, which was not really taking place years ago, to export their services. Now, as a small business owner, in the services sector, you don't need a lot of money to export your services, or whatever it is that you are offering. So there's a great opportunity there for people in the services sector. Now, the services sector is the largest group around the world when it comes to it's growing, and there are great opportunities there as well. So we do training, we support small business owners in times of adversity. This is really important. We are able to provide advice by qualified personnel in legal, accounting, staffing and industrial relations, including work, health and safety. We are currently doing the Commonwealth Government's digital training program for the next 2 years on the Gold Coast, Brisbane and Sydney. This is all matters relating to digital training because this is the way the world is going. So we'll provide really first-class advice and service there. Now, the events that we hold include business networking in Brisbane and Sydney, business networking to commence on the Gold Coast shortly. We are recommencing our business luncheons because we alternate our events every few years. We're doing a small business expo in late 2020. We're doing our summit in late 2020, which will be very exciting. And we do trade missions to India and Japan in 2020. In November of this year, we are going for the third year to India. Great opportunities over there. And we work with the World Trade Organisation, other business organisations, government and business to business in India. And we have monthly think tank meetings. Now, we also have an e-newsletter that has a reach of 100,000 Australia-wide. We do an e-invitation that goes out and has a reach of 22,000. That's along the Gold Coast corridor. And we partner with 33 other industries, organisations, and they cover just about every field of business.
absolutely amazing. It's your reach is truly national.
It's very national. It actually has a bit of a reach internationally as well, because we will be starting our e-newsletter that will be going internationally through all the contacts, because we also work with consular services, all that type of thing. It's really fantastic. It's exciting, actually.
The Japanese Navy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You heard about that? Yeah. Oh, can I tell you that story?
Yeah.
Okay. Last year in, I think it was in July. That's right, July. I was invited to a very small private luncheon at the official residence of the Japanese consulate. That was beautiful. We had a beautiful lunch and everything, and it was all matters relating to small business. And the consulate has actually attended some of our networking nights and dropped in and everything, which is fantastic. Meeting with Australian small businesses, and there is a push to nurture the relationship between ourselves and our small business community. And then this year, as you all know, that we have the military exercises off the coast of Australia, which includes the American, Australian, the Japanese and other forces. And the Japanese put on an official welcome in Brisbane recently. They invited 300 guests. That included the Queensland Governor, other consulates, military personnel, which included Germany and other Asian countries. It was absolutely fabulous, all dressed up with their medals and so forth. And they hosted this fantastic event on board their vessel. And it was also, it was like in the belly of the vessel. And we walked past a guard of honour. It's the first time I think most of us have had a Navy guard of honour.
Isn't that wonderful?
It was brilliant. Oh, gee, they put on a fabulous show.
Were their clothes ironed properly?
Oh, it was immaculate. They were all of the military people were.
Did you give you a little wave like they do?
Oh, I did. Like yes, I felt like
the Queen.
The Queen walking up the gangplank.
But there are no corgis allowed.
Yeah. And we were feted and wined and dined. It was beautiful. They had different displays of flower arranging, the tea making ceremony, the drums, which are absolutely exquisite. But the food was out of this world. The decoration, the way they did it, it was just unbelievable. You just can't describe it.
And I have heard on the grapevine that you wolfed down a few sakis.
That was beautiful sake. It was beautiful.
But the idea is to share with everybody else.
But absolutely gorgeous, And but the sake today too, they have different flavours of sake, and it's really quite amazing.
Delicious.
So yeah, that was a really great event. So that's where the relationships come into it, and this is applying with a number of countries that we do.
It's absolutely fantastic. Now, have you had any members, say for example, facing adversity, come to you for help?
Yes, and I'm very proud of this one because there is nothing better than to be able to help a small business owner and get a good result. If I can give you one case, and there are many, one particular business owner from South Australia, and he publicly stated this because he came to our summit a little while ago, and he actually said this publicly in front of everybody. He contacted just about everybody, and nobody either didn't want to or didn't know or that they could help him. So he came to us, and we never refuse anybody. Sometimes we may be able to do something, sometimes we may not. So we can't promise that, but we will listen to a situation. And where we can, we will do what we can. Now, that was a great outcome. Had that man been left to his own devices, he would be bankrupt today, and he shouldn't have been he should not have to be bankrupted. He had a good business, but he had a major dispute with a bank that really went out of control. But that had a great outcome. That's just one of them. And there are many cases like that. For example, several years ago at Port Hedland in West Australia, with the downturn in the mining industry, people invested in homes, etc., and these homes they had mortgages of over $1 million. The rents were exorbitant, and of course, so everything looked great. Then with the downturn in prices in the mining industry, these people were then left with property. Instead of being worth $1 million or $2 million, they were worth practically nothing, and I mean nothing. And they're still stuck with the huge mortgages. So we were able to negotiate and to sort out things for them. So they're great outcomes.
A lot of organisations are very closed shop.
Yeah.
Do you work with other organisations, or do you also remain closed shop?
No, we're not a closed shop because we don't believe in it. We partner with around 33 other industries, and what we do is we lend support to them and vice versa. When we have events, we support each other as well. We support each other in advocacy at times, depending on the situation. And so through having 33 other industry partners, we provide opportunities and diversity for our members and supporters.
So tell us about the programs that the SBAA is currently engaged in and beyond.
Yes, we are currently engaged in a 2-year digital training program on behalf of the Commonwealth Government under its digital program. Now, these events will be held on the Gold Coast with us, commencing next month in August, and we will also be doing them in Brisbane and Sydney. We will be providing fantastic programs. They're going to be free of charge to the small business owner, but they will have to register, and we will cover a whole variety of aspects, all related to digital training. Because there's a lot out there, there's a lot of misinformation out there, there's a lot of hype out there, and the people who will present will be great industry partners. And we were very, very fortunate to be selected with 14 other organisations to roll out this program.
Wow.
Yep.
What about ethnic groups? Do you embrace the ethnic groups?
Yes, we do. And it's very, very important to engage with them, because I sometimes, even though they have their own organisations, I think sometimes there's a bit of a disconnect there between us and them. When I say us and them, Australians and different ethnic groups. And so we do engage with them. We welcome them, and it doesn't matter what their background is. We will work with all groups, and we do actually. So if anybody's listening and they want to contact us, please feel free.
How do they do that?
So. They can contact us by sending an email. Probably that's the best way, because if I get inundated with phone calls, we might crash. So please email at info@smallbusinessassociation, all one word, .com.au.
You're listening to Coast Business Radio with Mike Ryan.